And for the first time in this series, Sarah J. Maas gets to write a fun synonym for Tamlin's penis.
Yay!
I've been waiting for this my whole life.
You're listening to Getting Fae'd. We,
Lukas,
Lea,
and Meike are reading A Court of Mist and Fury for the very first time. Today we are covering chapters 1 and 2. Get Fae'd with us!
woo!
A very happy welcome to the very first episode of A Court of Mist and Fury!
Yay!
yes.
We have made it.
This feels like an accomplishment.
Yes.
True. Let's be honest, getting through book 1 is an accomplishment. No.
Yes.
Enough about book 1. Let's talk about book 2. Should we start with the cover?
Let's start at the beginning.
The very beginning.
First things first. This time, I can confidently say that it's a bird.
And you are correct.
Yes.
Nice. It's a fancy bird that goes...
It has kind of raven vibes, right?
So
Or like
when,
a crow.
Crow.
But yeah, probably a raven.
Yeah, when I first saw the cover, I immediately thought of Rysand. Even though I logically know that he's not a bird, but he's a bat. But yeah, Rysand vibes. Maybe it's gonna be a new character. Maybe if it's like a crow, a new Night Court character.
Do you think the green has a particular meaning, or is it just a difference to red?
I don't know, but I like it. It's
Yeah.
giving me like a positive feeling. I don't know. I'm looking at this book and I'm feeling better than I did with book 1.
Interesting, because I feel it's more ominous, not like bad or evil in some way, but it's like, woo, ominous.
You know, I think it feels more adult. More like a grown-up book. You know, away from the childish neon red and onto the...
Adult neon turquoise.
Yes.
I mean, it says darkly sexy and thrilling. So
Oy, oy,
that
oy.
kind of sounds like the book will focus more on this dark and intense vibe of the end of book 1. And that's what I liked about book 1. So I think we're in for a good time. I hope.
Yes.
We also shouldn't miss that the bird is carrying a ring.
Yes.
A ring, ring,
We
ring.
thought it might be Jurian's ring, but it's just a bit too small to contain an eye.
And then we thought it would be a wedding ring. And I think we might have been correct on that one.
Maybe.
Shall we then open the book?
Yes.
Let's go.
It sounds like we are now reading this for the first time.
We are not.
Don't worry, we have in fact read the first 2 chapters.
There's once again a dedication. And this time it's for Josh and Annie, who I'm pretty sure is her dog.
Oh, I thought it might be a daughter or something.
In book 1, it was something like for Josh, who would go under the mountain for me. But this time it's for Josh and Annie, my own court of dreams. And we know Under the Mountain was hinting at a place which would become very important in the book. So now I'm thinking Court of Dreams will be very important in the book.
That's a perfect transition to the map, which has a few new places added. One of them being a court of nightmares.
But all of these places are so small.
Yeah.
Printed small.
Yes,
Yeah.
like I wouldn't say I have bad eyesight, but those are so small. Like
Yes.
there were some I actually had trouble reading. Like I took an effort and was like, what does it say? And I think I have it right now.
Yeah. So I didn't just take an effort. I took a photo and then I just zoomed in on my phone. And that
smart.
worked kind of well. Maybe we can compare our findings.
Okay, there is Weaver's Cottage right next to Under the Mountain.
Sounds a bit like a spidery lady that might be a
Yes.
hag or something.
Wow, starting off with a place that I actually didn't see.
It sounds ominous and I think it sounds cool.
Also, it's interesting that the most new added places are in Night Court, but that one is added next to Under the Mountain. So why would Feyre probably maybe go back there?
Maybe it's just talked about in the book, but we don't know that yet.
But then there are no places in Spring Court, which I was surprised by. And as you said, many new places in Night Court. Valaris,
Could be like a capital.
It's pretty big.
then the Court of Nightmares, which you already mentioned, the prison,
Oh, it's a prison again.
and then Illyrian mountains and the Illyrian steppes. That's what I read.
Okay. Illyrian?
Yes, like
Okay, I read
ILLYRIAN.
as Myrlas.
Okay.
For me, it's MYRLAS.
I think, now looking at it, I think it's a mixture of the both of you. MYRIAN. So Mirian.
And then, last but not least, there is a place at the top of the fairy realms in the east that is called Valahan, which just sounds like Valhalla.
Yeah.
I'm calling Nordic vibes.
Yeah. But spoiler, Valahan does come up in these chapters, so...
But that was not the last place.
No?
No?
No, there's a place in Summercourt, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And it's called Adriaca? Adriaca? Adriaca?
It looks like Adriaca. Adriaca?
Adriaca.
Adriaca. Adriaca.
I don't know.
Adriaca.
It kind of sounds spidery.
Spidery?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think it will be spidery, but it sounds spidery. But let's move on and leave
Yes.
the map behind. I feel like book 1 taught us that the places on the map will play some part in the story, so I guess we will see these places again.
So a lot of Night Court, maybe, probably, hopefully.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Shall we then move on to not the first chapter, surprisingly?
Because the book does not start with chapter 1, but an untitled prologue thingy, I'd say.
Yeah.
And it's this angsty, dreamlike bit where Feyre relives her third task under the mountain and she's killing the two Fae again. It's very dark, very PTSD, and she's like seeing and feeling everything as if it was real, which I think is setting a cool mood for this book. I think we talked about it in like the end of the last book that we were like, is she gonna have trouble with it? Is she gonna fight it? And it looks like it.
Yeah. I mean, it confirms what we have guessed in the end of book 1, that Feyre is starting out in a place of deep depression and self-loathing.
Yes.
Because she sees herself stabbing her new immortal self. So, probably self-loathing. But do you think there's even more symbolism going on?
I just think it also means that she doesn't think she deserves to live.
Yeah,
Like, because
I
of what
think
she
that's
did,
it.
she's not only loathing herself, she's just thinking she should die.
Yeah. Maybe this dream will like come up again and again, and or maybe it will change. Then maybe it will be like a catharsis and she will kill like her past self at some point and leave that behind, or evolve from that or something.
Yeah, maybe she'll even go on and develop a personality.
I think she's on a good way now. She says this one sentence where she's like, I was the butcher of innocence, the savior of a land. And I think that pretty much just breaks down the conflict of her character. Because she did something very bad, but she also did it to do something very good, which I think is just a huge conflict in yourself.
Yeah, she pulled the lever in the trolley problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there is another empty page, except for the words, Part 1, The House of Beasts.
That made me so excited for some reason. Just the fact that there is a part structure. I like that in books, and it just makes me hopeful that this book has a structure.
I hope that the next part will also be a house of something. Maybe it's House of Darkness.
House of Shadow and Flames.
House
Yeah,
of
I was-
Edgy Make Edge.
I was surprised by the Part 1 title being House of Something, because her new series is titled A House of Something and Something. Guess she likes houses.
I think it gives a Song of Ice and Fire vibes with the houses and stuff and aristocratic shenanigans, and I'm here for that. I want that. I want scheming and political shit.
That's what I thought. Maybe now that Amarantha is gone, Prithian will return to this whole lordship thingy where different houses have feuds with other houses, and I'm looking
Juicy.
forward to that. But as hyped as I was at this point, chapter 1 did not begin promising for me, and I actually just thought about leaving that part out because Feyre is vomiting and I don't want to talk about that. But this scene read so much like she's pregnant,
Yeah.
and we guessed that she could become pregnant we're just gonna have to talk about it. Chapter 1 begins with Feyre hurling her guts up in the bathroom after having a nightmare. But the way it's written, just in the first sentence, it's just, I'm vomiting, and I think she says, like, every time these days, blah, 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 which could also mean pregnancy. And I'm just wondering, did Sarah J. Maas want the readers to think that she's pregnant?
I think it's a red herring. I think you're supposed to read that and be like, ooh, morning sickness, but actually it's trauma.
Yeah, I feel so too. Because I feel like vomiting is just a very common way in media in general to have like a, oh shit, she's pregnant moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually she's traumatized by the reoccurring nightmares, which we learned about in the prologue. And apparently it's happening a lot. And Feyre always wakes up afterwards not able to tell if she's home or still in Amarantha's dungeon, even though it's been 3 months since what happened under the mountain. So there's a 3 months time gap. And I'm feeling sorry for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts off pretty dark.
Yeah.
Yes, but I have to say I like that there are consequences to
Yes.
what happened
Yes.
in book 1. I think it would have been weird if she would just have gone home and be like, well, guess I'm awesome now.
You know, just in retrospective, what I really like is that book 1 kind of immediately finishes off the villain and now deals with what happens after you defeat the villain.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, especially YA books, don't do that. They have like multiple books in a series which all builds up to the defeat of the villain, and then it stops and you're like, oh, now they all live happily ever after, but probably they don't. And this book is maybe that they don't, but that they can heal or not. I don't know. We're only in chapter 2.
Yeah, but that's true. Like in every YA book series, they are basically children that experienced a war and death and loss, and they're gonna be traumatized by that. And it's cool to see how that turns out and how they deal with that.
Yeah.
I like traumatized Feyre. She's so much more interesting than painting Feyre.
That poor woman.
But yeah, but not only is she traumatized, she also has a very hard time adjusting to her new body, which the way she describes it is also kind of funny. Because
Yeah.
she's like a young puppy who doesn't know their strength and breaks stuff and just falls around.
Yeah. I thought it was very good to read that because it's nice to know that she's not just like a natural born fae inside, like, oh, I was made for this or something. She actually has to work to adjust. And I have to admit, it was kind of relatable when she was like, I smashed not 1, but 5 glass doors. I mean, that has not happened to me.
I was just about to say, how is that relatable to you?
But I feel like that would happen to me if I was in her position. Because that is such a specific image and connected to such a specific action that I was like, yeah, I can so see that happening to me.
And she breaks all the silverware. The groaning fork is back.
They're so made for each other, Tamlin and Feyre.
Yeah, she just kind of feels like Spider-Man. Because I feel like in the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie, there's that scene where he like breaks the tap in the bathroom, and it's funny.
Super strength, always funny. You know what's not funny? We learn that Rysand has not come to collect Feyre's bargain, so he hasn't been there for 3 months.
Very
And
suspicious.
we don't know if he's okay. We don't know what's going on.
I'm actually kind of worried for him.
In the beginning, when I first read it, I was like, why wouldn't he cash in? Like, it's been 3 months. But when she remembers her last encounter with him, I was like, oh my God, it ended with him being panicked or something. Is he like tied up? Did something happen? I mean, we already wondered. He's either busy or maybe even captured or...
Very suspicious. But it also means we did not miss 3 times Rysand visit.
That would
'Cause
have been sad.
That would be weird and sad if she was just like, the last 3 times we played chess.
But I also think it's very logical that she's like, okay, I will not poke that bear. He hasn't come. I do not want to actually engage with that bargain. Let's just ignore it was there and hope he also forgot.
Yeah, I like the way she speaks about him because she doesn't feel like she's stricken the way she could be in like a YA book where he's the possible other love interest. And she's not only scared, like she dreads the day he comes to collect her, but she's also kind of curious why he isn't coming and if he's okay, because the last time they spoke, he didn't feel like an enemy to her. And she acknowledges that, and I think that's cool. Like, it speaks of good character dynamics.
Yeah.
If he ever comes back.
Yeah, but I'm hoping to get a whole lot more of Rysand in this book than we got in the last book.
I think
know
we
we will. We have to. It was set up. It would be a waste of sexy if he didn't show up.
And a waste of setup.
Yeah.
Speaking of a waste of sex.
Tamlin?
Yeah. Feyre goes back to bed where Tamlin is still asleep and naked. And Feyre mentions that he never seems to wake up when she's having a nightmare. Though through like her face senses, she sometimes thinks that like his breath is catching and he's waking up. But he never says anything.
Very odd.
Yeah. And he does have similar dreams. But he does not go throwing up, but he transforms into the beast form and then sleeps on the floor guarding the door.
Great.
And honestly, that is not a good coping mechanism, but him guarding the door as his elk thingy is kind of a sweet thought.
He's a little doggo. The thing is, Feyre thinks because he doesn't want to talk about, I guess, his feelings, emotions, his fear of his dreams and of Amarantha, he also does not talk with Feyre about it when she wakes up. But I'm like, you don't have to talk about it. You could just wake up and be there for her when she has to vomit.
Yeah.
Like,
They seem to think that talking or like acknowledging that Amarantha still haunts them is giving her power or like giving her some kind of a defeat over them, which is nah. They're both traumatized and they just totally suck it up, and that's not healthy.
I have the quote right here. It had become our unspoken agreement not to let Amarantha win by acknowledging that she still tormented us in our dreams and waking hours. I actually found it understandable.
Yes.
Because obviously she has not won. But she kinda won in a way because, I mean, it hasn't really come between them, but it is hanging over their relationship and it is impacting their relationship. But it's also unhealthy.
Yeah, I mean, it is an impact on their relationship, but it's an even worse impact if they just don't talk about it. And I have to say, I just get very bad vibes from their relationship at the beginning of this book.
Yeah.
I mean, I already didn't like them in book 1, and I think neither of us did. But this time I feel like that's just... They don't talk, he just pretends he doesn't hear her, and...
You know, I think I said last episode, when we discussed the end of the book, that I wouldn't want Tamlin to just be like an abusive, evil boyfriend, and that would make him villainous, but that I wanted him to be like an actual villain with a plan and a motive and whatever. But now, I think I've changed my mind. Like, I don't want Tamlin to be an abusive boyfriend, but I think a story where Tamlin is actually like her first love, and they both went through something and they are just not able to cope with it in their relationship, and that breaks them apart. That would be a good narrative.
Yeah.
Like, it would be more a narrative of heartbreak and of growth and trauma and all that, but it would be a good story. It wouldn't make Tamlin a villain, which would be sad for me. But I think that would be an interesting story to read.
Yeah.
It would be very adult.
almost new adult.
And I think it would be something a lot of people can relate to.
Yes.
So it would totally fit this growing into your adult role genre.
And you know what people also can relate to?
Huh.
After the relationship falls apart, they all go to their sexy shadow daddy. And I hope that's gonna happen in this book. And I have a quote to support my thesis that obviously Rysand is the next step for Feyre, because as she vomited and looks out the window, she says in her inner monologue, I could see the night sky where the breeze could caress my face. And that's just after she described how bad/toxic things are with Tamlin. Then she looks out and is like, in a way, my night guy, Rysand, is there for me, you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Analysis A+ in literature class.
What I found interesting is that apparently, like, basically no one has actually visited Night Court.
And lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, and like in the last book, I kind of got the impression that especially like high fae frequently visit other courts, especially for like festive occasions. Like Rysand was there for
Calanmai.
whatever the fuck, Calanmai. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was just like regular fae court business. But apparently just no one visits Night Court, which...
It makes Night Court sound so mystical. And it really makes me want to go there in this book and explore it. And also the way Feyre describes Night Court is she calls it like a place of mountains and darkness and stars and death. And I think that maybe ACOMAF would have been a better title for ACOMAF.
Would you like to explain that?
ACOMAF. A court of mountains and darkness and stars and death. ACOMAF.
I love it. Mountains, darkness, never mind. Move on. Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
No.
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 I wanted to invite you to Plumbing Corner with Getting Fae'd because she describes how she flushed in the toilet. And that made me realize that we don't really get toilets and a mention of plumbing and how the water lines works in fantasy books because they don't really talk about this. And that made me also realize that I don't know the history of plumbing. And when I read the word flushed, it just kind of caught me off guard because it feels so modern, because it makes me think that she can just push the flush button and then the water comes.
I feel like she pulled a string. But, so in A Song of Ice and Fire, something very important happens on the toilet.
But it's not one that you flush.
That's true. It's like an outhouse, but inside. So I guess he poops on the street or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Feyre too glamorous for that.
yeah. Speaking of Game of Thrones, an ancestor of Kit Harington's, who plays Jon Snow, invented either the flushing of the toilet or toilet paper.
Something toilet related.
Yeah, he tells that story on one of the talk shows, one of the Jimmys, I think.
But when was that? When was the toilet flushing mechanism invented? Because I feel like this would really help us to kind of pinpoint the era this book is supposed to mimic.
I mean, you can just research when plumbing was invented, but also I think it feels kind of Renaissance-y or later Renaissance. So
I don't think they flushed.
no, I'm just thinking about it, like especially like houses on the land. I guess they just had outhouses. And in the cities, they just threw everything on the streets.
Yeah.
Must have been horrible.
I saw a while back, I saw like a list of inventions that saved the most lives in total. And it was like vaccines and antibiotics and stuff. But I think the first place was just toilets. Because like waste management is a big deal in preventing germs to spread.
I think it was the sewer system,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Because a
don't know.
toilet, that can just be any place. I think like pooping on the street could still be a toilet if you sit on something while doing it.
I don't know.
But yeah,
the word toilet has a loose definition, I guess.
Would you like to hear what Wikipedia says?
Yes.
I love how you had the question, when was plumbing invented before this podcast? And you were like, I'm just going to go into the podcast and be like, I don't know when plumbing was invented.
Yeah, I thought we could have a chat about this.
It's nice. So I was right. John Harrington built the first, the thing that flushes. The flush, I guess. I don't know. So he invented that in 1596
Huh.
on order of Elizabeth I. But it actually gained, I guess, further acknowledgement in 1775 when Alexander Cumming did something that makes him be viewed as the inventor of the modern water closet.
Uh-huh. That's interesting. When you just said on orders of Elizabeth I, I just kind of forgot that the two Elizabeths weren't back to back. How old was Elizabeth I?
I mean, she was old.
But mid-1500s, that is kind of the Renaissance, right?
I think it fits the vibe of ACOTAR.
It's like shortly after the Middle Ages.
Yeah. So I think we can conclude Plumbing Corner with Getting Fae'd that it makes sense that flushing is invented, especially in this obviously very rich household. Nice.
Good for them.
So we talked about how the relationship between Tamlin and Feyre seems a bit unhealthy right now. And I feel like the first 2 sentences of chapter 2 support that. Because this chapter begins with, I want to go. And he says, no. And that perfectly encapsulates their relationship.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So Tamlin is being toxic again. I'm feeling right at home.
You're right back to bossy. Because Feyre wants to go... What?
Right back to bossy. It's funny. I had to laugh.
Sorry, I'm not used to people laughing so much.
Lea is the #1 fan of this podcast.
Yeah, I listen to every episode. Sometimes twice.
Please continue. It's right back to bossy.
Such a great sentence. Could be like a subtitle for a movie. Back to Bossy. Barbie 2, Back to Bossy.
A Court of Mist and Fury, back to bossy.
Because Feyre really wants to go and help some village, but Tamlin just refuses her because he thinks it's too dangerous. Question? How does she want to help? Why does the village need help?
She mentions that she wants to hunt food for the village.
Right.
And later it is mentioned that there are refugees returning to Springcourt, and I guess returning to the village, and they are like building their houses up again and stuff like that. But like when she first mentions the village, I was confused because we've never heard anything different about Springcourt than the manor.
I thought she meant her own village for a second.
So I was like, oh, she wants to go home. That's interesting. He's not letting her go home. What the fuck, man? And then she wants to help there. And I was like, oh, what is going on there?
I like that there is a village because it makes the world feel a bit more alive.
Yeah, there's in this whole chapter a lot of things added that make this world feel a lot richer.
Yes.
Because book 1, I think it's due to the fact that we basically, for a whole chunk of the book in Springcourt, we have like 4 people doing stuff. And it felt pretty empty and bland and whatnot. And I like that she makes an effort to create an alive and breathing world.
For example, Tamlin has 2 Feylord sentries by his side. He and Lucian and his 2 sentries. I mean, that are already 4 people now. Want to go on hunting beasts. But I was like, Feylord, so there are more Feylords in Springcourt now? And they're like, there's people! Wee!
Repopulating.
Nice.
But Lucian's first appearance wasn't a good one. Because he's just like giving Feyre a look to not push poor Tamlin. Because he's just making this decision for her to keep her safe. Ugh.
Yeah. Lucian has a lot of very, very strong moments. But he also has his moments of being just an annoying man.
Yeah. They are off to hunt some beasts that now roam free. No, it's a bad R day, I'm sorry. That now roam free in Springcourt for reasons, because I guess these are like Amarantha's beasts that she set. I think they like put the borders back up to the courts. But some beasts slipped through and now they have to go hunt them all to restore peace.
So it's still not safe out there.
Yeah.
Especially not for Feyre. And Tamlin has this whole thing where he's like, I can't do what I'm supposed to do when I have to worry about you. And then he's basically like, why don't you just go home and paint?
Yeah, and honestly, was he not there when Feyre saved his fucking ass
and then died?
All of Springcourt's ass? Okay, she died. That's okay. I mean, but
she did not die because of the beast. She slew the fucking worm.
Yeah, like before she died, she did a great job. She has proven herself to be very competent. I feel like he can. Like, I get where he's coming from, but I feel like she has proven that she can get shit done. Seriously.
I agree wholeheartedly. But I can also understand a position where he's like, I know you can handle yourself, but I will still worry, and then I cannot do my job because I'm worrying. So I'm not like saying he's right. I guess I can see a point where he might come from, even though I don't think he's at the exact point I would like him to be.
Yeah, I understand where he's coming from. I don't think he should constrict her freedom.
Yes.
Just because he cannot cope with his own feelings.
That's true.
Yeah.
You put it in a very good way.
Thank you. But shocker, despite Tamlin being Tamlin, they're engaged.
For 2 months now. Mm-hmm. Which means they have lived together like in normalcy for 1 month. And then they decided to marry.
And they are getting married in 2 weeks.
And somehow that is way too fast. But also feels like the next logical step in the story. Like story-wise.
Yeah, kind of.
Yes. Yeah. In the end, they have been dating for half a year only.
Yeah.
It's a bit fun. And she's 20. Spoiler, she had her birthday.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I read that she had her birthday, but I didn't relate it to her age. Oops.
She's 20 now.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
I know that there are people getting married at 20. Shout out to all of you. But I feel like that's so young. I was a completely different person when I was 20.
On the other hand, like, these are kind of medieval times. And I think even like 50, 60 years ago, people married quite young. I think the time period they know each other is more unusual than her age.
There's also the age gap, but
I think you just have to get over that, Lukas. Otherwise, you won't be happy here.
I'm still waiting for Hot Mortal Guy to step in and be Feyre's new love interest.
But she's not even mortal now.
Yeah, but she's still young. There would not be an age gap.
Have we talked about when Fae children are considered adult? Because would she be considered adult? I mean, I would hope so, because she is adult.
It would be funny if, like, by Fae law, she's basically a toddler. And she's, like, not allowed to vote and drive a carriage.
I don't think those Fae vote.
I was just gonna say, lucky for her, she doesn't have to vote. She just rules.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been a very eventful 3 months. Not only did Tamlin propose, and Feyre aged up 1 year, but it's also been Christmas. I mean, the winter solstice, but it sounds very Christmas.
They gave each other gifts.
Yeah, which also happens to be Feyre's birthday. Very poetic in a way that I didn't bother to analyze.
Well,
no, I'm sorry.
She's the savior of their people and was born on Christmas Day.
Oh,
She's Jesus.
Is that the angle of this book? Is she just Jesus?
She came back from the dead.
Oh fuck, she's Jesus. Oh no.
I mean, I didn't think of that because I kind of didn't register the birthday thing. I mean, I read it, but I just glossed over it. But it's always Jesus.
Oh no, she's Jesus. Oh man. She came back from the death. She's elevated into immortality. She's the savior of the people. I just thought it was poetic because it's like the longest night of the year.
I mean, yeah.
And then after that, the days start to become longer because she's savior. But you're right. She's Fae Jesus.
I think we found the fairy tale she's adapting in this book.
The Bible.
Sorry to all the devout Christians out there. Wasn't meant in malice. But hey, Jesus, woohoo!
But coming back to this winter solstice thingy, this is one of these moments where it seems like Sarah J. Maas is, like, in this book, trying to just paint a bigger picture of this world. Because she tells the story, like Feyre tells the story of how the winter solstice, it's not sure where it originated, and both Day and Winter Court claim it as, like, their own celebration, and they kind of fight over it and cannot decide on who celebrated it first, and that just gives this world character.
Yeah.
And what also gives this whole shebang character is the way Feyre is like, yeah, didn't really do it for me. I mean, I didn't really like all the celebrating, but also like celebrating this winter thing in this never-ending springtime felt kind of weird. That was just funny.
And it's understandable.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, I once spent a winter in New Zealand, which was summer. So it was Christmas in the summer. That was very weird.
And also, she just didn't tell anyone that it was her birthday, which I find very relatable. She's like, I don't know, I don't want the fuss. I just want to live my life in peace.
She's growing on you, isn't she?
Honestly, yeah. I feel like I can't put my finger on it quite yet, but book 2 just does a better job of painting these characters. I feel like for the first time while reading this, I just kind of had a vivid image of Feyre, which is hard because she's just such a blank piece of paper. But it was there for a split second. I had it. I had a grasp of her personality.
I know why you like her now. Because she has become an introvert.
And Jesus.
So both just like me.
I mean,
You look like adult Jesus.
no, but
With your face in a book.
For reference, I have a beard and long brown curly hair.
Jesus.
End of the reference.
She also seems kind of miserable in her current role. Because, first of all, she hates this kind of socializing. And second of all, she hates this organizing of aristocratic events. For example, the wedding. But like, as Tamlin's future wife, that is kind of, I mean, she's like the woman of the household. And that is basically her role, probably. So, yeah, not the brightest future in her wake.
Which is very much a classical young queen role,
Yeah.
right? Where she would rather do something else, but everything she does is looked at and is analyzed and
Yeah.
will always have a message. And while she would rather put on her tunic and go hunting, that would send a message of, like, maybe even danger. If she will wear daggers and if she will wear weapons, that will send the message that it's still dangerous and that she still fears something. And then the normal folk would be like, oh no, we still live in danger. And she doesn't want that. So
Yeah. This paints the picture even more that there's going to be more political shenanigans going on and maybe political scheming, and that she has to embody her role even though she maybe does not like that or not every part of it. Like with the dresses, like Tamlin gifts her like beautiful dresses and she kind of hates wearing them, but she does it anyways. And she doesn't tell him that she doesn't like it. So he's probably like, hey, she likes my gifts. But on the other hand, if she doesn't wear them, the message, as you said, would be like, ooh, danger, danger. So kind of twisted.
It's a hard life for her. So I think what might do her some good is 1 week of vacation per month in Night Court. I think that's a possibility for the story, that she feels freedom from that life in Night Court.
Especially if they go flying.
Oh. But I was very happy to see another beloved character make an appearance. Lucian's knife that he gifted to
yeah.
Feyre, that she wears on a bejeweled belt. Also, Lucian gave her. Awesome.
Of course.
I was so happy to read that.
Yes.
Slay.
So yeah, it's a good thing she keeps at least some daggers with her.
Yeah.
So she can feel safe and natural about herself, whatever. After this unsuccessful argument between those two, I guess Tamlin and Lucian piss off to save the world.
Woo.
And Feyre goes to meet Ianthe.
A new character.
Ianthe. We have heard about her because of that.
I saw an Instagram reel where someone connected zodiac signs
Yeah.
and characters from ACOTAR.
Yeah.
And I think Ianthe was a Gemini, like
Just
you,
like me.
Lukas.
Yeah.
Suspicious.
You don't remember this bit from 10 episodes ago.
There she is.
I have no idea how to pronounce that name.
I think it's Ianthe.
Yeah.
Ianthe? What kind of name is that? No offense to anyone called Ianthe.
I think it's not that bad of a name. I don't like the way it's spelled. Like, it looks weird on the page.
Yeah.
Because it just looks like Ian the. But
Ian the what?
But when you say it the way Lea just said it, it sounds like a fantasy name.
Yeah. It is a bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah.
But honestly, just because we know that apparently the fandom associates her with Gemini, I don't trust her. I feel like she's gonna be two-faced in some way. Maybe not even in an evil way, but I definitely feel like there's way more to her than we experienced as of now.
I mean, I try not to read too much into this, but I also do not trust her. She hasn't won me over yet.
But let's start at the beginning with her. She's a high priestess and also a longtime friend of Tamlin. Her father was Tamlin's ally, as well as his captain in his forces. But he saw trouble coming with Amarantha, and he packed off Ianthe and her two younger sisters and her mother to Valahan, that place in the east. And she's like this very ethereal, pale beauty with a tattoo of the moon phases on her brow in this long, billowing robes with a hood that can be pulled down, turning her into the voice of the cauldron, where you only see her mouth and nose. And she's fully in priestess mode.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. A lot of like new additions to this world. Like suddenly there are priestesses and such. Very interesting, very cool. I like this.
A funny side note about her is that she wears a lot of jewelry, such as bracelets, which do not look much different to the ones the children of the blessed wear to like attract fairies, which Feyre told us about in like chapter 2 of ACOTAR. And there might actually be a connection between them and the priestesses. That's interesting. That's an interesting fact. Like maybe at some point a priest has met a mortal and they saw the bracelets and they thought, oh, they like jewelry. I'm gonna wear jewelry to attract them. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Like it was connecting the two worlds in a way. We don't learn too much about the priestesses in themselves. We only learn that there are 12 high priestesses, which govern over their sisters all across the Fae territories. And they are unlike the Christian sisters who live in celibate, because for them, it would dishonor the cauldron's gift of fertility and female magic in bearing life to not give in to lust and sexuality. So they have a lot of fun. I like that about them.
Yeah.
But Ianthe does not have children, and she is not married. But she does enjoy the company of men, especially one man. One of the three of us very much like.
Yeah.
One called Lucian.
But Lucian apparently kind of despises her. I'm glad. I don't want them.
I mean, I want Lucian to be happy.
But not with her.
Come on. We've known her for one chapter, okay?
I think he will only be happy with Tamlin. Let's be honest.
I mean, I would like to see Lucian in a healthy relationship, and I think that's possible. Lucian, call me. But, I mean, maybe she could give that to him. And if that were to happen in a healthy way, I would be happy for Lulu.
Yeah, I mean, Feyre even thinks that maybe Lucian is, because his former lover died so cruelly, he's afraid of like meaningful relationships. And that's why he doesn't want to talk to Ianthe, because he's scared of what might come out of it. But she also thinks that maybe he just has not forgiven her for leaving, like all of them, when shit went down.
Yeah.
I think she's speaking the truth, and I think she's not far off with talking about his fear of a committed relationship with women. But I think she says that to kind of like not be like, I think he hates you.
Yeah. And honestly, I kind of do trust Lucian's judgment. He hasn't been that wrong in the book. Like, he has behaved wrongly, but I feel like he knows what's up. So if he doesn't like her yet, I don't like her yet.
Yeah. But Ianthe has kind of become Feyre's confidant and advisor, kind of like a lady in waiting or something. Very interesting. very interesting dynamic.
But she does talk weirdly about her. There's this one sentence when she goes to meet Ianthe. She's talking about her trust to Ianthe, and then she's like, I was in no position to doubt. She hadn't led me astray yet. And I'd learned to dread the days when she was busy at her own temple on the grounds, overseeing pilgrims and her acolytes. Today, though, yes, spending time with Ianthe was better than the alternative. Which, that's a weird way to talk about someone you trust. She hasn't led me astray yet.
She kind of says later that she has become her crutch, and Feyre is like, it's just hard for her to make decisions, so she delegates. It feels like almost everything to Ianthe, and so in that way she might be like, oh no, I'm dreading when she is away at her temple because I don't have this crutch at my disposal right now.
Yeah.
But I do feel it is a strange way to describe this relationship because I think it's also an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah, the way Ianthe almost worships Tamlin and Feyre as a couple. Apart from the fact that that's just weird. Also
those fucking kitty shippers.
Putting a new couple on a pedestal is also very dangerous, I think. Because it just puts so much expectations on them. And you can't evolve in your relationship because you have to fulfill this public image, I guess.
And she's Jesus.
Yeah.
So obviously the high priest is gonna worship her.
So obviously she's gonna plan their wedding. I thought it was so funny that she's the high priestess and she looks very ominous and seems very cool and kind of disconnected from the normal world. But then she's the wedding planner.
I mean, I have not delved too deeply into these kind of topics, but I have seen The Crown, and there, the wedding, the royal wedding, is just like a political affair.
Yeah.
And so there are all these people that are planning this, and are like, no, we have to do this because this sends this message and this. Almost nothing is about the pair themselves, and more of the state ceremonies.
Totally. She describes it as a game, all these pieces vying for power and dominance. Which
almost like a Game of Thrones. So Feyre is getting married. Does that mean her family will come to the wedding?
No.
Sadness.
We have considered the possibility of her family just swooping in, and I thought it would have made for a fun story.
Yeah.
If they are just invited to Fairy World to celebrate their Jesus daughter's wedding to a beast.
It would have been great. I really kind of hoped that she would say, yeah, I would want to invite them, but sadly she doesn't. That made me sad.
Especially since Ianthe offered. She didn't sound opposed to the idea of bringing humans.
But Feyre does say, when they talk about these political Fae games, my sister Nesta would likely fit in. And I thought, yes, she would. Please let that one sentence be foreshadowing.
I miss Nesta.
Yeah, but I found interesting that Feyre kind of thinks back to her family and the people from her village. She thinks of Isaac and of Thomas Mandray.
Very important.
There has to be more to him. Why else would she mention this man? He has done nothing yet than stand ominously in a corner.
I like your idea of him leading the revolution.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, depends on what perspective it is. Will it be a revolution or will it be an assault or something?
Yeah, for him it probably will feel like a revolution.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think you're onto something.
Do you think maybe Thomas and Elaine will be the leaders of the revolution because she's harvesting the ash trees and she starts out so innocently, but then she will become this, I don't know, cruel mortal lady, and that would be such a cool character arc.
Also kind of sad.
Yes, but cool. Mm-hmm. Tragic.
Ooh. As tragic as Feyre's wedding dress, which she hates. She describes it as a monstrosity of tulle, one even Tamlin laughs about. But then he's like, Ianthe knows what's best. She's the high priestess. If she chose this dress, you should wear it.
Oof, oof. I mean, Feyre is glad that at least the dress is not red, because trauma time. She has now developed a hatred for red because she associates that with Amarantha. Tragic. I love red. But I guess that's why the book couldn't be read anymore. Also, Feyre mentions that there was no mating bond between her and Tamlin yet. So is she hoping it will maybe still snap into place?
I think maybe she hopes for that because right now she has a lot of doubts about this relationship. So maybe she just wants to have this sign of the cauldron that this might be right. And I really don't think that's gonna happen.
I also don't think I have understood the whole mating thing wholly yet. If this mating thing exists, and then you meet someone you love, and you decide, I want to spend my life with them, but you know you haven't mated with them. What does that mean for you?
Doesn't that imply that your true soulmate is still out there, in a way?
And is mating always like a love bond? Like, does that mean there's someone out there you will love more? I mean, it's also kind of futile to say I won't start a relationship because it could end or I could meet someone better. That's also not healthy. But like...
Yeah, but if that's like the rule in this world, it's not I could meet someone better. It's I will meet someone better.
That's the question, like, will you meet your mate?
I'm not sure. I think everyone has a mate, but you rarely meet them.
That's so stupid. Like, shouldn't they be like kind of drawn to each other?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand it. And I read 2 book series focused on mates.
And I mean, she's not like explaining it very much. Like, there was a little bit of explanation in the first book, but like, hello, please explain your world to me. There's not a lot of lore for your world, but this seems like a very important part.
Well, I think the mating bond will come up at some point. Like, to be honest, this just feels like calling for Feyre to meet her mate.
Okay.
Whether it's Tamlin or not. I don't think it's Tamlin. So maybe when the time comes, we will learn what it is and what it means.
Yeah, I guess.
But for now, we have to live with Tamlin, naked Tamlin, once again.
Yay!
Yay.
You just sounded so happy about it.
Is that really your reaction to naked Tamlin?
Depends on the scene.
Because after a break in the chapter, we jump to, I think, just the evening, the night of this day.
Probably.
And Feyre is already in bed and Tamlin joins her after he has finished some lord business in his study, I guess.
He went hunting the beasts.
No, it says he spent most of the night in his study doing work.
But before that, he went hunting the beasts.
Yes.
And then he had to file the paperwork for hunting the beasts.
Yes, probably.
Killed a naga today. Yay. Good stuff for me.
As we know, Feyre has trouble sleeping. She's feeling anxious and panicky whenever she closes her eyes. I'm sorry to laugh. Like, I made it very clear that I feel sorry for her and that I relate to her feelings at some point and whatnot. But she's so funny when she's like, oh my God, I did everything. I even opened the window. I still couldn't sleep.
Don't just always sleep with an open window.
That was so odd. Like, it's spring. It's always spring. That means it's like the perfect time to just open your window slightly and...
Naja.
Maybe she's allergic to
Oh my God.
pollen.
Imagine.
I would die.
That place would be a nightmare.
It's the god of nightmares. I found it.
But I feel like Fae do not have allergies.
Oh yeah, I forgot that she's Fae, honestly.
We also learned that Feyre and Tamlin have separate bedrooms. Interesting.
How demure.
But he still sleeps in her room every night. And apparently he wanted Feyre to have enough of her own space, so she gave her her own room, which is suspicious for Tamlin. What is he hiding in his room? Why has Feyre never been to his room?
Yeah.
What's
That's the
in
question.
there?
Has she seen his bedroom?
That's the question. She just says she never spent a night in there. She doesn't say if she's ever been in there.
I guess we know where Rysand has been hiding all this time.
No, but like if she has never stepped foot in his room and marries him, girl, rethink your life.
Yeah, and then they fuck.
And for the first time in this series, Sarah J. Maas gets to write a fun synonym for Tamlin's penis.
Yay!
I've been waiting for this my whole life.
She uses proud, thick length.
Nice. I thought it was one of the less cringy ways I've read to describe
Yeah.
a penis. And
That Lea was a cringy way to just say the word penis in a funny voice.
she just writes it in italics. He pulls out his penis. Ooh.
Yeah, so he pulls out his wee-wee.
No, but
His willy.
at that point, I
His
remember.
Willem Dafoe.
Stop.
I'm sorry, Willem Dafoe, if you're listening to this.
Willem Dafoe is awesome. No,
Just like Tamlin's proud name. This is my fan cast.
based. So what I wanted to say, when I read that, I remembered a post I saw about Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune, who described the penis as a beef swelling. And I was like, no, I'm happy with the proud thick length. I'm glad it's not a beef swelling. Thank you.
Well, she is for equality and she uses a synonym for her clitoris as well. The bundle of nerves at the apex of my thighs. Very
Nice.
technical, but okay.
She could have called it her clithia.
But overall, this sex scene has just weird wording at some points because she's using snarl of approval and his hiss and that he's ravenous. And it all, I think, it sounds a bit negative. Like a hiss when he looks at her. And I know that it's probably to like draw on his animalistic side and they have this raw love, yeah, and raw sex, but it just feels like this sex scene is painted negatively without it saying, oh, I don't like it, he's rough to me. It just, from the outside, it doesn't feel as good for her as the one in ACOTAR did.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the reason for that might be that they just kind of have sex so they don't have to talk about hard stuff.
Yeah.
I actually like the sex scene because, first of all, it was way more elaborate than the other ones. And I felt like the other ones in ACOTAR were like, and now they have sex.
Right.
And this time, it felt like actually adding something to the story because here they are talking about their feelings. I mean, not like too much. Like they're like kind of getting nearer to each other and talking about their feelings. Like he's like, okay, you know, I can't do my job when you're out there hunting and stuff. Like they have some reconciliation. And what I especially liked is that there's this kind of shock reveal and that acts like kind of a cock block. And so the shock is way like more impactful. Like she's like, what actually am I when we're married? And he's like, no, there are no high ladies. And she's like, I'm sorry, excuse me, what? And she describes like everything stops. And like that to me, like it took me out of the scene. I was like, I'm sorry, what? There are no high ladies? Like I was offended at this point.
And what do you mean there are no high ladies? Haven't you seen Feyre on fairy wine? But was it just me? Or did it kind of feel like a tiny seed of foreshadowing for the very, very end of the series?
Hi, Lady Feyre.
Yeah, sure. I think so too.
I could see that.
But do you think she will be High Lady of Prythian?
Ooh.
Maybe.
So she will unite Prythian under her rule and be like a positive Amarantha.
Maybe.
I mean, in a kind of way, because she called herself High Lady, right?
She did. Yeah, coming back to them talking through their sex scene, I just think I didn't like the fact that they need to be physical to be emotional. I just don't think that mixing that, like not being able to have one without the other, feels, I don't know. This whole relationship feels toxic and we've talked about it, but I think this just cemented it for me, that they only have this physical thing because they trauma bond.
Yeah.
But despite that, it was differently written than the one in ACOTAR, I agree. It was more focused on like what was happening, sounds so technical, but like who's doing what and who's stimulating what and what is that doing. And I think there was like a very positive view on like, stimulation and like a slow pace in sex.
We learned that Tamlin has very, very nimble fingers. And I'm glad that he could control his claws.
Oh, Jesus.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, but you're right. The end of the scene is just Feyre wanting to talk about stuff that happened and her feelings, and then just Tamlin keeps going, and he's so good that Feyre doesn't want to talk about it.
That's the thing that I was like, because like I put this like whole cockblock moment. I enjoyed it, like story-wise. But then she was like, oh, but he's so good. Yeah, okay, let's fuck. I forget my concerns. And I was like,
Yeah, and then she starts talking about the day and like mentions Lucian. And then Tamlin goes, I don't want to hear another male's name on your lips right now. Ugh. And I went out of my way to write alternating capital and small letters in my notes just to convey this feeling.
You were so
Nice.
angry.
That's the thing. Like, if you have that kind of relationship where you're like, have sex and talk about your day during it, then you should be able to talk about your day, where inevitably there are other people involved.
Would it have been fine for Tamlin if she just talked about Yanthe?
Probably. Let's be honest.
But I don't want this negative feeling to be the end
No.
of this episode.
No.
Because I'm feeling very positive about this book.
Yes.
It's looking better, at least for me. It just feels like a new adventure, and I'm
Yeah.
excited to get into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
These 2 chapters were fun.
Yes.
Agreed. I have a tighter grasp on the characters and what I really like, as much as we talked about their relationship being toxic. Obviously, we talked about this a lot in book 1 as well. But here in book 2, for the first time, I feel like the book acknowledges
Yeah.
that this is a toxic relationship, and it feels like Sarah J. Maas is building toward a plot to talk about this and to make this a relevant plot point, which I feel like the first book just didn't really do.
Yeah, I agree. So that's the thing, like all this negative energy is kind of a positive thing in the book because it promises like a good plot, an
Yeah.
interesting plot.
I'm so excited. This is gonna be a long and epic journey.
Very
Do
long.
you think like a whole party will trek to Night Court and kind of free Rysand, or is it just like Feyre?
Okay, here's what's gonna happen.
Okay.
So we get a squad force of Feyre, Lucian, Yanthe. So Lucian and Yanthe can just kind of get on with it on the way. Tamlin is not coming. And also they bring Isaac and Mahogany.
Who came to the wedding?
Yeah, she didn't invite her family, but she invited the 2 most important people of her old life, Isaac Hale and that one hot mercenary that she met on the market. And they trek to Night Court on foot, obviously, so we get to see all of Prithian.
That's why the book is so long.
And then after that nice through hike, the PHT, the Prithian High Trail, they save Rysand.
Okay, I think my theory is like the opposite to yours, because I don't
How
think
rude!
Rysand is captive somewhere, because he's just so powerful, and like he also got his powers back.
True.
I think like maybe at the wedding or after the wedding or shortly before the wedding.
Is he gonna be a wedding crasher?
He will come there and deliver some very bad news, or maybe even bring a fight there. I don't know, something like that. And then he's like this troublemaker that's kind of getting in between this relationship.
Ooh, I love
And
it.
then they still have to work together because
Yeah.
whatever he's telling them can only be solved by them working together.
That's
and
amazing.
Can only be solved by them through hiking on the PHT.
Yeah, that could be the case.
So that's it for the first episode of ACOMAF.
The new era.
Many more will follow.
Many, many more.
And if you don't want to miss any of them, maybe give us a follow so you don't miss any episodes. And if you want to catch some highlights or some memes or some outtakes, you can follow us on our socials at Getting Fae'd Pod on Instagram and TikTok. And there you can also send us some DMs and give us some feedback or just some impressions or just jokes, whatever you like. Just please don't send any spoilers because then we can't do this podcast anymore and that would be sad. And I would be
Thanks.
very sad.
Yes. And also, if this happens to be your first time listening to this podcast and you can't wait for 2 weeks until we get on with ACOMAF, I have great news because we have approximately like 25 hours of content where we talk about book 1. So we can just binge listen to all of them. And if you like them, you can recommend us to a friend. To a hot, sexy damsel in distress, maybe, that you go safe from a nightish prison after you walked through the whole country And while you walk through the whole country, you can download all of our episodes and listen to all of them. Because listening to podcasts while through hiking is a nice activity if you're through hiking lonely.
Or just recommend us to, like, your mom. So we hope you will join us next time when we are
Getting Fae'd!